Welcome to Trailblazers and Coffee, your podcast for elevating women in leadership, with your hosts, Dr. Christina Pecora and Dr. Abby Brown.
All right. Hi, Colleen. Welcome to Trailblazers and Coffee. Can you tell me how you know my co-host, Christina?
Christina and my husband did grad school together.
Okay. Well,
Mhm.
she couldn't be here today, but I'm going to take the reins, and I'm so glad that you're here.
Thanks for having me.
Um, so before we get started, I'm going to read your bio. And, you gave it to me and told me I could kind of cherry pick, but it's also good that I think I'm just going to read all of it.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are so fortunate to have Colleen Kilbride here. She holds over a decade of combined experience in immigration and labor law, always advocating for the rights of immigrants and workers. Currently, Colleen practices labor law as in-house counsel for the Chicago Laborers District Council, where she fights on behalf of over 20,000 union workers in the construction, municipal, and industrial sectors, focusing on wage theft and sexual harassment issues. Previously, Colleen worked as a senior and supervising attorney at National Immigrant Justice Center, based in Chicago, where she specialized in representing detained and released unaccompanied minors. She handled complicated removal defense cases for detained and released asylum seekers. Her past experiences included advocating for detained immigrant mothers separated from their children in southern Texas, survivors of domestic violence in Milwaukee, and family-based immigration petitions in El Paso. While attending law school at night, Colleen worked in the organized labor movement, including a summer at the Culinary Workers Local 226, filing unfair labor practice charges against Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. Colleen graduated magna cum laude from Augustana College in Rock Island, Illinois, with a BA in Spanish, and she received her JD with pro bono honors from Georgetown University Law Center. Colleen is fluent in Spanish and licensed to practice law in the state of Illinois. Colleen shares her love of Chicago, food, and community with her husband and the two feisty daughters. So, wow. Thank you so much, Colleen. Well, what we always do when we get started here is we start by saying what's in your cup today? Are you drinking anything right now? What do you got?
I'm a huge fan of flavored waters. And right now, LaCroix's coconut is my novelty flavor. I can't get enough of it.
I'm obsessed with that one too. That's a really good one. And I don't actually really love LaCroix. There's a whole bunch of other
I
there's many
agree.
others, but that is the one I will grab.
Mm-hmm.
Well, fantastic. Right now I don't have anything with me, but as always, a little mini Diet Coke can is kind of my
So too.
early afternoon treat. And our other question is, what is your blazer mood? So if you had a blazer on, if your blazer had a mood, what would it be? Tell us what kind of blazer you would be wearing.
I think it has to be a polka dot blazer. I'm channeling that energy of the woman in the polka dot dress in New York City recently, standing up to ice. I don't yet own a polka dot blazer, but I should really consider getting one or just another polka dot dress.
I think that is so fantastic. I
Mhm.
love it and perfect for this podcast today. And if I see one out and about in the world,
Let me know.
I will shoot you a
In the
text.
wild, yes.
Yes. I think mine is probably I recently got a navy and green like plaid blazer from a thrift store. So I'm feeling that right now just because the weather gets a little bit colder.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, why don't we pivot and let's get into the interview? The opportunity to meet with you, it's so timely. And I know a number of our listeners feel very passionate about what's happening in our country, and many of our listeners are local to Illinois and Chicagoland. Could you explain to our listeners, whether they're, aware of what's happening or not, tell us what is currently happening on the ground with ICE in Chicago right now? Why has it come to a head? Why is Chicago such a hotbed of this activity? Really, just give us your take on the situation.
Simply put, ICE is terrorizing our city. There's no neighborhood that's safe or immune from these federal authorities, these goons. I'm thinking of Albany Park neighborhood, where I saw some friends who live in that neighborhood who took a video of ICE authorities running through people's backyards as if there's no longer a reasonable expectation of privacy on somebody's backyard, somebody's personal privacy. These are Fourth Amendment rights that are being eroded. We're seeing unlawful arrests, ICE just roaming peaceful neighborhoods to arrest people without a warrant, chasing down anyone who looks foreign born, meaning Latino in this situation. And I'm emphasizing unlawful arrests because we have not the Nava settlement here in this part of the country that says ICE cannot just go arrest someone because they think they might be undocumented. You have to have a warrant in most cases to arrest someone, and they don't. They're just roaming the streets. I'm thinking of the Irving Park neighborhood just last weekend in Lakeview last week, where neighbors, just citizens of the block, come out to see what's going on and they end up getting tear gassed, which was also in violation of a different temporary restraining order. So there's a lot of mayhem, a lot of chaos, a lot of fear, and people are being stopped in their cars while people are being detained while pumping gas. I saw a video of a young woman in Cicero, especially they're targeting places of high immigrant density, a young woman walking into Walmart, two fully masked, camouflaged agents stopping her saying, what country were you born in? And she happened to be lucky enough to not be detained after she answered their questions and they believed her, but they were totally, it's just unabashful racial profiling. Them
Right.
going out to the airport, Uber, Lyft, rideshare parking lots. There's just so many examples of what's happening. ICE is also arresting people during what should be routine check-ins and interviews at USCIS, which is the Administrative Office of Immigration Petitions. This is happening to highly educated individuals who entered with visas, entered lawfully, married to US citizens with attorneys. So we're talking about the 1%, figuratively speaking, of immigrants that are working on regularizing, just advancing their immigration process, doing everything correct, and are still being detained in some situations. People who are in the court system with applications pending, also with paid private good attorneys, being detained just because at ICE check-ins.
Mm.
People detained when they're attending their court hearings. It's really, I mean, and then there's everything that's going on at the Broadview Processing Center, which is not a detention center, should only be for very briefly. There was a lawsuit filed just yesterday in the Northern District of Illinois outlining all the horrors and abuses that are happening to folks who are there. And then what's happening outside, people are trying to assert their free speech rights and protest peacefully. All the violence, assaulting clergy members. So, I mean, this is permeating everyone in Chicago. We're aware of the ICE helicopters in the air. As residents, we're hyper vigilant. Is that ICE? I've got people on my kids' public school street corners looking out, and I'm so grateful for them. My kids' Halloween parade at the public school here, they've adjusted. They're not actually doing a parade outside because they're only going to do it through the school within the fence of the school's playground because of risks. It's just every day we're all on edge, even those of us steeped in privilege.
Right. Yes. No, nobody is off limits. And I'm curious, how is this for you personally, dealing with this professionally?
So in my current professional capacity, my client is the union. I work for the union and I'm unable to represent in individuals who are in their immigration proceedings right now. So I'm trying to show up as a concerned citizen, as a parent within our community. We were able to host a really nice workshop with a lot of parents within the school system and within my neighbors and supporting people I know in that way. What we see in my work is a lot of wage theft, and it's overwhelmingly focused on people of color, even our union members who have those extra protections, as opposed to a non-union worker who's being stolen from the most are immigrant workers. And I should say, to your question, construction workers are being racially profiled, and that's a big population of the union I work for. So we've had a lot of union members being detained, sometimes released, or being detained because 25 years ago they had a DUI. That shouldn't be a reason. Everyone has, that's it's just ICE is taking things and stretching it beyond belief.
Mhm.
So construction workers, like I said, that I represent mostly, they are at highly big risks, and a lot of people are getting detained when they shouldn't be. And then what's happening to them? They're getting, you don't hear from them, then they're shipped out to another state, and people's chance of release, even if they're eligible for that, they have no chance to access legal counsel. So it's not good.
It's so horrific. Oh, I'm just imagining too, like kids at school have already navigated so much trauma, in recent years with COVID and school shootings and drills, and now, add this layer. I mean, the layers of trauma affecting uh, the, so many people in so many different ways. It's unfathomable.
And I do want to say on the positive note, what is also happening, incredible community pushback. I don't want to be all negative. We're seeing unprecedented numbers at the No Kings rallies. There
Yes.
are these amazing hyper local community support happening, coming that are just creating. I'm on multiple signal threads with my neighbors and connecting and with my local community more than I have in years. There's cyclists, bike patrols, rapid responders in all shapes and forms throughout the city. People are really showing up and pushing back.
Yeah. I think that says so much about Chicago and the strength of Chicago. On that note, Chicago is a sanctuary city. Can you explain what that means from your professional perspective? Because we hear that, and I think there's questions around like, what does that actually
What does
look
that
like?
even
Yeah,
mean?
and what does
Right.
that mean? And what is that something that actually bears weight in this climate?
The city of Chicago has what's called the Welcoming City Ordinance, and that's the basis of what we get to claim as a sanctuary city. And that means the city itself, its employees are not going to ask residents about their immigration status or disclose Chicago residents' immigration status to authorities, and they're not going to deny or discriminate against you because of immigration status. Because Chicago is, as a city, officially puts itself out to be a very immigrant friendly city. It also, on a very legal basis, the city refuses to cooperate or partner with ICE to deport undocumented individuals. And Chicago's justification resonates with me. That would take away greatly needed resources from its own Chicago Police Department that need to be used elsewhere. It also makes communities safer because then immigrants can actually feel that if they call 911, they will receive help instead of being deported. So it means that if someone is stopped for, calls the police for any reason, or happens to be stopped by Chicago police for, say, even traffic violation, they're not going to then all of a sudden be transferred over to ICE. That's a real life implication. And that also has to do with the Trust Act that's statewide, that's been in act or has been in implementation since 2017, that was signed by then Governor Bruce Rauner,
Mhm.
that restricts local law enforcement from collaborating with federal immigration enforcement without a judicial warrant. Again, if there's a judicial warrant, it's a
Hmm.
different situation, but it's like stopping this deportation pipeline when somebody just gets pulled over for driving 5 miles over or something like that.
Right. And that was, a different political landscape at that time. So that's an interesting thing I wasn't aware of.
Mhm.
So tell us, from a practical perspective, what can immigrants or refugees do right now to keep themselves safe and avoid harassment?
Is it an age-old adage of knowledge is power? Get educated, know your rights. Some things that come to mind, don't run. I see videos of people being tackled coming out of a Walgreens because ICE went in there looking for someone, and somebody, just a bystander, says, I want to get out of here, and they bolt. And then that bystander gets tackled who happened to be a US citizen. I'm not saying that's okay. It's assault, it's unnecessary, all of it's wrong. However, running around law enforcement, they'll use that as justification of reasonable suspicion that you've committed a crime.
Hmm.
So don't run as much as possible. Move slowly, calmly, staying calm, never lie. Do not sign anything without first talking with a lawyer. And all of these go fall under the umbrella of knowing your rights. There's a great, I want to promote that ICER is the organization, it's the Illinois Coalition of Immigrant and Refugee Rights. They have excellent Know Your Rights information on their website. So does National Immigrant Justice Center. Their website's Immigrant Justice. And they have excellent Know Your Rights that are, for your palm size, to read on your phone, to keep and share with your entire household. I also recommend for immigrants to establish a relationship with a lawyer familiar with their background and share that contact information with your family because you have to think that worst case scenario given the situation. Another big bucket of things that families should consider is being prepared, which often can involve creating a family emergency plan. The city of Chicago has great resources online for that. Many nonprofits do as well. And then and that includes things like who's going to pick up my kids if I can't, as well as other important documents to have in order. And then ICER, I cannot say enough good things about ICER. Save their hotline number. It's 855 Help My Family. They have an excellent 24-hour hotline to report recent detentions because they're tracking this information. We cannot trust what the government tells us on these issues. And they're also screening people for if they do possibly qualify for release under this novice settlement that says ICE can't arrest people without a valid warrant. So ICER is a really good place to direct people to for getting educated, as well as if the worst does happen, if someone is detained, what to do next.
Great. Yeah, and we'll make sure to have this information in our show notes so that, folks can refer to it and pass it along to others as well. So, I'm a psychologist, Christina is as well. We work with a lot of clients who kind of regular citizens who want to be involved but are kind of navigating, I've got kids or I've got a day job. Like, how do I participate? How do I volunteer? I might not be able to go down to Broadview, but is there something else that I can do? What do you suggest? Where can we put our support?
Absolutely. There's a range of options, and it really depends on your skill set and capacity. At a minimum, find yourself a whistle and carry it in your purse, backpack, whatever it is you take when you leave the house. These whistle kits are instrumental as a way to help notify if ICE is seen and if someone is being actively detained to alert everyone in the vicinity to come out because we have seen time after time, one, it helps notify others if they want to avoid any interaction with with ICE that they can hopefully hear that warning and make their own decisions. But also, too, it helps call other people to hold ICE accountable. We have seen so many abuses of their authority, and we need to capture this on video. So taking video, sharing it with the media, because there are links again. ICER is someone who can receive that type of video and send it to the right legal teams who are working on these different court orders and ongoing cases and litigation against the government. And you're not interfering. You don't need to break the law and have these violent or hostile interactions with the authorities. I'm not saying, if people want to do that, that's their prerogative and their choice. But having a whistle is showing up in a very small, tangible way in case it comes upon you. Because if you don't have it with you, you can't respond in that same way. There are options like a rapid response bike patrol. I personally don't own a bicycle. We're working on that. But some people do, and they have that time. I can't, because of my job and the two kids, I can't always, that's not a way I can participate, but other people are. And it's really incredible what those bike patrols are doing. There are volunteers at lots of different public schools in the morning at pickup and drop off that are just standing at the corners with whistles around their neck to be able to alert folks if ICE is spotted. I'm going to keep going with ideas.
I love it. Keep going.
Citizenship clinics. You don't have to be a lawyer to volunteer at things like this. Through ICER, it's something called the New Americans Initiative, which is the funding for this. They hold, I think it's almost monthly, citizenship clinics around the city. I've been doing them for the past couple of months. As a lawyer, I can help screen, but there's a lot of volunteers needed just to help with flow and preparation, filling things out. These forms are in English. You get trained, you can help. That's such a really nice positive thing where folks who've been lawful permanent residents, sometimes since the 80s, are now motivated. I want to become a citizen because I'm afraid. So that's a way to just really connect and through an established, well-run, well-vetted organization where you just get to show up for a couple hours, maybe on a Saturday, for example. I also want to lift up neighborhood mutual aid groups. I've recently gotten involved. I live in the Avondale neighborhood in Chicago, and it's a wonderful mutual aid group that I think has been around for a while, but now has this big influx of energy to be able to help folks. We're talking about donating for groceries. Even some people are doing their neighbor's laundry. And you might be like, what? It's because folks who don't have their own in-unit washer or dryer, they don't want to be exposed going to and from the laundromat. Like this is the level of fear we're talking about. Offering to drive people places in your vehicle just to have that, protection as the white privilege as a shield or in that other car can make a difference. Joining signal chats in your neighborhood to know what's going on, following group organizations like ICER and OCAD who are tracking the awfulness that's happening around the city, checking with your alderman's office, see what options that they have that in Spanish we say que te llama la atención, that calls your attention, right? One person, like I said, I'm not a bike patrol person, but I am getting involved with my mutual aid group and I'm doing the citizenship clinics. So see what is a good fit for you. If you happen to be a parent with kids in school, check in with the school. There's stuff happening at every local school. Just last week we had I helped run a workshop on safe and secure community, trying to educate our community as far as what our rights are. And we talked about ways that we can help support other families within our mini community. And that it's like as simple as getting phone numbers for other parents in your kid's classroom to see if you can be added as an authorized pickup person. That takes a level of trust, but you got to get there and introduce yourself, putting yourself out there. And also, if a lot of this doesn't seem like something you're comfortable doing, donate your dollars to places like National Immigrant Justice Center here in Chicago that does legal services to immigrants. Again, ICER, the Illinois Coalition of Immigrant Refugee Rights, or your neighborhood mutual aid group. ACLU of Illinois is another good one.
Right. It sounds like there's no excuse because there's just so many different ways that you can contribute on the ground with your money, using your privilege for good. You said knowledge is power, so, film, record, get out there, tap into what you are good at. If you've got a bicycle and you've got the time, go get on your bike. So lots of different ways. So we've talked about thank you so much for these very tangible resources that folks can do locally. What about, kind of broader solutions? What do you think, here we have ICE doing what they're doing in these communities. What would be a better, more effective solution in policy and law and regulation? What do you think?
On a broad level, it's called follow due process. What does that mean in the immigration context? Not these unlawful tactics ripping families apart. Cease warrantless arrests. Allow people to pursue their immigration cases with attorneys instead of scooping people up off the street. Let people proceed with their cases. This is due process to let people follow the law because right now they're just truncating everything. That is a really sad place to be. And I just want us to get back to where people had immigrants. It's always been an uphill battle and unfair for the immigrant in the legal process here in the United States. But we've had so many violations of due process ever since Trump took round two in his administration. So getting back to due process existing, I know that's very legal attorney jargon, but it's so important. And another very concrete, tangible thing is funding our immigration court system so people can get decisions. I started being an immigration attorney here in Chicago in 2017, and there were cases that were pending 5 or 6 years. After I left there 8 years later, Some of those cases were still pending. People have cases that are pending for years on years, not because they've done anything wrong, because the immigration court is so backlogged. Everyone agrees on that. That's a bipartisan, let's fix this. People, think about your life is in, as the immigrant, your life is on pause. You don't know, am I safe? Can I stay? What's going to happen? People want decisions. So fund the immigration court. What has Trump done? He's fired over 100 judges. And instead, DOJ has approved sending up to 600 unqualified military lawyers to serve as IJs. The first IJs are immigration judges. The first batch of these temporary judges, 25, were just recently installed in the last couple of weeks, including here in Chicago. And yeah, these military lawyers have some background in some federal government work, but they've lowered the requirements that remove the need to even have prior immigration law experience.
Wow.
Immigrants want to follow the rules and want to have their day in court, and Trump has only made it 10 times worse. So funding the court system so people can actually have their court heard in a way, in a timeline that is reasonable. Because other times, even under Biden, they make these new proclamations where cases have to be heard within 60 days. You're brand new here in the United States. You're still trying to figure out how to get a roof over your head and your kid in school. You don't have the means or the resources or the know-how financially in every way to have and pay for an attorney to prepare your case as fully as it needs to prepare. So you don't want it to be way too fast because then you're rammed through and have no chance of winning. But you also don't want 8 years because then everything gets stale and it's just no way to go. But it's broken. Everyone can agree that that's broken. And then lastly, like, restore the right to seek asylum. Asylum is when someone is afraid of being murdered in their home country on the basis of something they can't change about themselves, their race, their gender, perhaps their sexual orientation, their religion, those sorts of things. This is the most American thing to come here, and if you qualify for this is something that's been on the books for decades. And asylum has been restricted in a million technical ways over the past decade of, well, if you entered during this time period and you entered this way, but not that way, and then it's been made, and they created under Trump the Remain in Mexico, where you had to stay in Mexico during the pendency of your asylum court proceedings. It's just, that's not currently happening, but the ramifications of all the messiness and restrictions on asylum, the access to even apply for asylum. So those are the things that come to mind as far as getting us back to a place that's more reasonable.
Right. So due process, fund the courts, the immigration courts, and restore asylum. Is that
Yeah, restore the right to seek
the
asylum.
right to seek asylum? So
Mm.
thank you so much for really synthesizing and honing in on what we should expect, and hopefully we will see a world in which these things do occur. Thank you so much for being here. I want to just offer you the chance to share anything else that I didn't ask or that we didn't cover. I'm sure we could talk for a very long time.
Yeah, I just want to encourage everyone to support our immigrant neighbors, whether that's as easy as patronizing restaurants who are most likely suffering, finding a family in need, or donating to a reputable organization, supporting those who are really hurting right now so we can get through the other side of this time.
This podcast today, I feel like is so important. Everything that you've shared today it's tangible. It's guidance for our community. Thank you so much. So timely, and thank you for the work that you do and your colleagues do and your community members. Again, we will make sure that we have these resources in the show notes, and I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us.
Thanks for having me, Abby.
For more information on today's guest, check out the show notes for this episode. Thanks for joining us.